They fed a human child to the fierce alien dragon. What happened next no one predicted. Comment below where you are watching from. The planet Zytherian was a world of fire and stone. Volcanoes burned in the distance, and the sky was always dark with ash and smoke. The ground shook under the heavy footsteps of the Vrythax dragons, creatures feared across the galaxy for their size, strength, and cruelty. Their scales were harder than any metal, their claws sharper than the finest swords, and their eyes burned like molten gold. To face one was death, and everyone knew it. A small group of humans had settled on Zytherian, hoping to study the planet and its strange resources. They were not warriors, not soldiers, just explorers and settlers. The aliens did not see them as equals. They saw humans as weak, small, and easy prey. Among the humans was a child named Kieran. He was only 8 years old, small and thin, with bright eyes that always seemed curious about everything. Kieran had heard the warnings from the elders, the stories of dragons that devoured anything in their path. But he had never truly understood fear until that day. The alien guards grabbed Kieran roughly and dragged him through the jagged rocks of the alien city. He tried to scream, but the guards only laughed at his cries. They brought him to a massive arena, carved from black stone, where the strongest dragons were kept. The air was hot and smelled of sulfur. The ground trembled as the dragons roared, each roar shaking the bones of everyone present. The aliens had gathered in large numbers. They were not here to see a fight, they were here to see a human child die. The elders, tall and cruel, stood at the highest platform, their eyes glowing faintly. One of them, their leader, raised a clawed hand and spoke in a voice that boomed across the arena. This human has dared to come to our world. Let it prove its worth, or perish. Feed it to Thrynix, the fiercest of the Vrythax. Let us see if it survives where no one has. Kieran's heart pounded. He looked down at the massive pit below. It was filled with molten rocks and jagged stones. And at the center of it, a massive shadow moved. A low growl rumbled through the arena, and Kieran felt it in his chest. This was Thrynix, the dragon that even the strongest aliens feared. Its eyes glowed like fire, and its scales shimmered darkly. Smoke rose from its nostrils as it paced, each step cracking the ground. Its claws were as long as Kieran's body, and its tail swept like a battering ram. Kieran trembled but did not cry. He remembered what his father had told him: when you cannot fight with strength, fight with your mind. When fear comes, do not run from it. Stand tall even if your body shakes. Kieran took a deep breath and tried to make himself as small as possible, yet as calm as he could. The alien guards shoved him forward. Into the pit, one barked. Kieran stumbled, his small feet slipping on the black rocks. He landed on his knees, looking up at Thrynix. The dragon stopped pacing. It cocked its massive head and stared. Its golden eyes were filled with curiosity, and for the first time, Kieran noticed something unexpected. The dragon was not attacking. Kieran swallowed hard. He knew that any wrong move could mean death. But he also felt a strange calm. Something inside him told him to speak. His voice was small, almost a whisper, but it carried across the pit. Hello. I am Kieran. I'm not here to fight you. I do not want to hurt you. The dragon's nostrils flared. Smoke curled into the air. It stepped closer, its claws scraping the rocks. Kieran held his ground. He remembered another story from his mother, that dragons could sense fear. And now he realized he had to show no fear, no matter how scared he felt. Thrynix lowered its massive head. Its eyes locked on Kieran, searching, testing, judging. The humans in the stands gasped. No human had ever survived being this close to a Vrythax. The elders whispered to each other, their faces twisted in confusion. Something about this human child was different. Kieran slowly reached out a hand, trembling slightly. I am not your enemy, he said. The dragon sniffed him, and then, incredibly, it nudged his hand gently with its snout. The pit was silent except for the crackle of molten rocks and the dragon's low rumble. Kieran realized something amazing. Thrynix was not attacking. It was curious. It was listening. A shiver of hope ran through him. He could not explain it, but he understood one thing clearly: fear alone would not save him. Only courage and thought could. From the stands, the alien elders' whispers grew louder. They had never seen a human act like this. Most of them had expected a scream, a panic, a death struggle. But Kieran was calm, brave in the face of impossible odds, standing before a dragon that could crush him in an instant. And so, the trial had begun, not a trial of strength but a test of something far rarer: human courage. Kieran did not know if he would survive, but in that moment, facing the fiercest dragon in the galaxy, he felt alive in a way he never had before. And somewhere deep in Thrinix's molten golden eyes, something began to stir, something that would change the fate of the child, the dragon, and the humans who had dared to come to Zytherian. Kieran followed the dragon as it moved through the cavern. Thrinix's massive claws scraped the black stone floor, sending small rocks flying. The heat from its body made the air shimmer, and every step shook the ground beneath him. The cavern was huge, stretching farther than Kieran could see, lit by glowing rivers of molten rock that twisted like fiery snakes. The dragon stopped for a moment and turned its head, looking down at the small human. Its golden eyes burned with curiosity, and smoke curled from its nostrils. Kieran stayed still, not daring to move too fast. His heart pounded, but he did not scream. He remembered the last thing his father had told him: fear is natural. Use it, don't let it use you. Thrinix let out a low rumble that shook the walls. It sniffed the air, and Kieran realized it could smell his fear. He closed his eyes for a second and took a deep breath, trying to calm himself. Slowly he opened them and looked at the dragon directly. I will not hurt you, he whispered. I only want to understand. The dragon tilted its massive head. Its claws dug into the stone, leaving deep scratches, and it moved closer. Kieran noticed the dragon's wings were folded tight against its back, but even folded, they were taller than any building he had ever seen. Its tail swung slowly like a heavy log, scraping the ground with a sound that made Kieran jump. Yet he did not run. He remembered the last human who faced a Vrythax. They had screamed and run, and had not survived. Thrinix began to walk deeper into the cavern, and Kieran followed carefully, one small step at a time. The walls glowed red and orange from the rivers of molten rock. Sparks flew as the dragon's claws struck the floor. The heat made Kieran's skin tingle, but he kept moving, keeping his eyes on the dragon. He felt that if he looked away even for a moment, the dragon might see him as prey again. Suddenly the dragon stopped. A sharp crack echoed through the cavern. Kieran looked up and saw that the ceiling above them had jagged rocks that looked like teeth. The dragon sniffed and then stepped carefully, guiding Kieran past the dangerous area. Kieran realized the dragon was not trying to hurt him. It was aware of the danger and somehow wanted to protect him. Kieran whispered, "Thank you," though he was not sure if the dragon could understand words. But he knew it could understand tone, calmness, and courage. The dragon's head lowered slightly, and it let out a rumble that sounded almost like a purr. Kieran felt a small wave of relief. They continued walking, and Kieran saw strange things in the cavern. Crystals grew out of the walls, glowing faintly in green, blue, and purple. Strange alien plants hung from the ceiling, their leaves dripping molten like sap. Kieran had never seen anything like it. He wanted to explore, but he knew the dragon would not allow him to wander. Thrinix stopped at a wide area near the largest river of molten rock. The dragon sniffed the air and roared, a sound that shook Kieran to his core. Kieran took a careful step back, but the dragon did not move toward him. Instead, it lowered its massive head and stared at him. Its eyes were filled with fire, but not anger, curiosity. Kieran slowly stepped forward, holding out his hands as if to show he meant no harm. I will not fight you, he said softly. I just want to be friends. He did not know if a dragon could understand friendship, but he hoped it understood trust. The dragon sniffed the air again. Then, in a movement so fast Kieran barely had time to react, Thrinix nudged him with its snout. It was gentle, careful, like the dragon was testing him. Kieran almost fell, but he caught himself. He smiled nervously. The dragon had not attacked him. Kieran realized something incredible. He had expected death the moment he entered the dragon's lair, but instead, the dragon was curious. It was watching him, learning him, trying to understand him. Kieran felt a strange confidence rising in him. He had no weapon, no shield, no armor, but he had something the dragon had never seen before: courage, calm, and the ability to think. For a moment, Kieran felt like he and the dragon were alone in the world. The molten rivers flowed, the walls glowed with strange colors, and the dragon's golden eyes followed every move he made. Kieran took a deep breath and realized that fear was not controlling him anymore. He could survive this, maybe even thrive. The dragon let out a low, almost approving rumble. Kieran smiled. He did not know how, but he felt that Thrinix would not harm him. Somehow, the dragon was testing him, waiting to see if the human was truly brave enough to face the impossible. As they moved deeper into the cavern, Kieran's mind raced. He wondered why the dragon was not attacking. Could it sense something in him? Could it sense something in humans that other species could not? For the first time, Kieran felt that humans were not weak. He felt a spark of hope, a spark that might change everything on Zytherian. The child and the dragon continued walking through the glowing cavern, the air filled with heat, fire, and smoke. Kieran knew this was only the beginning. The true test had not yet come. But for the first time he did not feel like prey. He felt like someone who could stand tall, even in the lair of the fiercest dragon in the galaxy. Kieran and Thrinix moved deeper into the cavern. The molten rivers of rock glowed brighter, making the dragon's black scales shine like metal. The heat was intense, but Kieran did not complain. Every step he took was careful yet steady. He noticed that the dragon's eyes followed him constantly, glowing gold like the sun in fire. Kieran had never been this close to a dragon before. He had read about them in human history, stories of dragons that could crush a mountain or burn a village in seconds. But Thrinix was different. This dragon did not attack him. It studied him almost as if it wanted to understand him. Kieran realized that surviving was not about running or hiding. It was about thinking. He remembered a story his mother told him. Humans had a strange gift, she said. They were not the strongest, not the fastest, but they could change things with their minds. Kieran had always wondered what she meant, but now he understood. This was his chance to show it. The dragon stopped near a narrow bridge of rock that crossed a molten river. The bridge was unstable with cracks and holes. Most creatures would be afraid to cross. Thrinix lowered its massive head to Kieran, and the child understood. The dragon wanted him to go first. Kieran's heart raced. One wrong step and he could fall into the fire below. But he took a deep breath and stepped forward. He felt the heat rising from the molten river and smelled smoke and sulfur. The bridge shook under his weight. He moved slowly, carefully placing each foot. The dragon watched, its eyes unblinking. When Kieran reached the middle, a piece of rock cracked under him. He almost fell, but he grabbed a jagged edge and pulled himself up. Thrinix growled softly, not in anger but in surprise. Kieran realized the dragon had not expected him to be so careful, so clever. Humans could think and plan in ways dragons could not. As Kieran crossed the bridge, he noticed the dragon's body tensing. Thrinix was worried about him. The dragon had the strength to crush him instantly, yet it hesitated. It was a strange feeling for Kieran to see fear in a creature so large and powerful. He smiled faintly. Perhaps dragons could learn fear too. When he reached the other side, Kieran turned to the dragon. See? It's not so dangerous if you think carefully, he said softly. Thrinix tilted its head and exhaled smoke. Kieran realized the dragon understood more than words. It had never met a creature that faced danger without panicking, and now it was curious about this small human. Kieran took a few steps closer and held out his hand. I don't want to fight. I only want to learn, and maybe help, he said. Thrinix sniffed his hand, its warm breath brushing against Kieran's face. Then it did something unexpected. It nudged him gently, almost like a touch of friendship. The child's heart swelled with hope. He had expected death, but instead he was learning something new. Humans were not just weak creatures. They could think, plan, and even calm the fiercest monsters with courage and cleverness. Kieran had not needed weapons or shields. He had used his mind and his heart. Suddenly the cavern shook violently. Rocks fell from above and molten sparks flew into the air. Thrinix roared, stepping in front of Kieran to protect him. The dragon's instinct was to attack, to survive, but Kieran raised his hands. Stop, he shouted. I can help. The dragon froze and Kieran saw its golden eyes narrow. Slowly he pointed to a safe path around the falling rocks. There. We can go this way, he said. He moved first, testing the rocks, and then signaled for the dragon to follow. Thrinix hesitated but then carefully walked after him, following his lead. Kieran felt something incredible. The dragon was listening to him. It trusted him. No human had ever controlled a dragon's actions before, not with force, but with intelligence and courage. Kieran realized that humans had an unseen power, the power to think, to lead, to influence even the strongest creatures without hurting them. They continued through the cavern, the danger growing with every step. Spikes of molten rock rose from the ground, and rivers of fire blocked their way. Kieran kept calm, guiding the dragon with soft words and careful gestures. Thrinix followed, and for the first time, Kieran felt like he was not alone in this dangerous world. The humans watching from the alien city would never believe what was happening. The fiercest dragon in the galaxy, the one that had killed countless creatures without mercy, was following a human child like a companion. Kieran smiled faintly. He had not won with strength or weapons. He had won with courage, patience, and cleverness. Thrinix stopped near a wide ledge overlooking a glowing river of molten rock. The dragon looked down at Kieran and he could feel its curiosity, almost like respect. Kieran knew that this moment was important. He had shown the dragon that humans were different, that humans were not weak. They could survive even in the most impossible situations. Kieran took a deep breath. He did not know what would happen next, but he understood one thing clearly. He had an unseen power inside him, something no one had ever expected. A small human could survive among dragons not with strength but with courage and thought. And somewhere deep in Thrinix's golden eyes, Kieran saw something that would change everything. A spark of trust, a spark of connection, and a spark that would soon grow into an alliance no one in the galaxy had ever imagined. Kieran and Thrinix moved carefully through the cavern, their steps echoing against the glowing walls. Sparks from the molten rivers drifted through the air, but Kieran did not flinch. He had learned that fear was not his enemy, it was a tool. The dragon had learned something too: humans were not easy prey. As they walked, Kieran noticed traps scattered across the cavern floor. Sharp rocks balanced on thin ledges, ready to fall with the slightest touch. Spikes of molten rock jutted from the ground, glowing like fiery teeth. He realized the elders had set these traps to test Thrinix, but now the dragon was walking into them with a human guiding it. Thrinix sniffed the air and looked down at Kieran. Its golden eyes seemed to ask a question. Kieran pointed to a safe path around the traps. "This way," he said softly. Thrinix tilted its massive head and carefully followed. Kieran's heart raced, but he stayed calm. He had to show the dragon that he could think faster than danger, that humans could solve problems other species could not. As they moved, the dragon stepped too close to a molten river. A small wave of fire splashed toward Kieran. He ducked and shouted, "Careful." Thrinix froze for a moment, then stepped back slowly. The dragon trusted him. It was unusual for a Vrythax to follow a human's advice, but Thrinix sensed something different in this small creature. Kieran realized he could guide the dragon without force. He could influence it with thought, caution, and understanding. He started speaking softly, describing each obstacle. "Step there. Watch out for the spike. Now to the left. That's safe." Thrinix listened. It moved as Kieran suggested, each step careful but precise. The child's courage and cleverness were guiding the fiercest dragon in the galaxy. The cavern grew narrower, the walls closing in. Molten rivers on both sides hissed and spat sparks. Kieran saw a gap ahead that looked impossible to cross. It was too far for him, too narrow for the dragon. He looked at Thrinix and whispered, "I have an idea, but we must trust each other." The dragon tilted its head, and Kieran felt a spark of hope. He ran forward, leaping across the first part of the gap. He landed safely on a small ledge, then looked back at the dragon. "Jump," he shouted. Thrinix hesitated. Its massive wings spread slightly, but the gap seemed too wide even for a dragon. Kieran took a deep breath. "You can do it. I trust you." With a powerful leap, Thrinix jumped across the gap. Sparks flew as its claws hit the far side. The dragon landed with a heavy thud, sending the ground shaking. Kieran laughed softly. The dragon looked at him, and for the first time, there was something almost like respect in its golden eyes. They continued deeper into the cavern. Kieran noticed the dragon's behavior changing. Thrinix was no longer just curious. It was cooperating. It moved aside when Kieran needed to step, it avoided obstacles that Kieran pointed out, and it even nudged him gently when he stumbled. The human child and the dragon were becoming a team. Suddenly, the cavern widened, revealing a massive chamber. At the center lay a nest of glowing crystals and molten rock. The air shimmered with heat, and the dragon stopped at the edge. Kieran realized this was Thrinix's personal territory, the place it had ruled for years. Most creatures would die here. Most humans would be crushed immediately. But Kieran stood tall. He had not needed strength to survive. He had used his mind, his courage, and his calm. The dragon lowered its head to Kieran. Its hot breath washed over him, but the child did not step back. He reached out a hand. "I will not hurt you," he said. "I want to help. We can be friends." Thrinix sniffed his hand, then nudged him gently with its massive snout. Kieran smiled faintly. He had formed a connection, something no one had expected. From the edges of the chamber, shadows moved. The alien elders had followed, curious about the child's progress. They had expected death, chaos, and fear. Instead, they saw something impossible, a human guiding the fiercest dragon, moving through its lair without a weapon, without a shield, only using courage and intelligence. Kieran turned toward the elders. "Humans are not weak," he said, his voice steady. "We can survive. We can think. And we can even make allies out of creatures you think are impossible to control." The elders whispered among themselves, their faces pale. They had underestimated humans as they always did. Thrinix let out a low rumble as if agreeing with the child. It spread its wings slightly, towering over the chamber, but it did not attack. Instead, it stayed close to Kieran, protecting him from the molten rocks and jagged crystals. Kieran felt a thrill of excitement. He realized something incredible: the dragon was no longer just a threat. It had become an ally. The child and the dragon moved through the chamber together, careful but confident. Kieran's heart swelled with pride. Humans had a power that others did not see, a power of thought, courage, and connection. He had survived in the lair of the fiercest dragon in the galaxy, not by strength, but by using his mind and his heart. For the first time, Kieran felt that humans could stand alongside dragons, that they could survive and even thrive in a world designed to destroy them. The dragon's eyes met his, golden and glowing, and Kieran knew that this alliance, small as it was, would change everything. The elders watched in silence. They had never seen anything like this. Humans had been small, weak, and insignificant in their eyes. But now one child had proven them wrong. The child had not only survived but had formed a bond with the impossible, a dragon. Kieran looked up at Thrinix and smiled. "We can do this together," he whispered. The dragon rumbled in response, and the cavern seemed to shake with a new energy, one born not of fear but of understanding and trust. And in that moment, a small human child and the fiercest dragon in the galaxy became more than survivor and predator. They became a team. A human and a dragon, united by courage, intelligence, and a spark of trust that would change the galaxy forever. Kieran and Thrinix emerged from the glowing cavern into the open sky of Zytherian. The heat of the molten rivers faded behind them, replaced by the cold wind of the mountain cliffs. The alien elders were waiting, their eyes wide with shock. They had expected death, screams, and chaos. Instead, they saw a small human child standing tall, beside the fiercest dragon in the galaxy. The child did not hold a weapon. He carried no shield, no armor, nothing but his courage and sharp mind. Yet his presence alone seemed to command attention. Thrinix, massive and powerful, lowered its head to Kieran, brushing its hot breath over him without harm. The dragon's golden eyes glowed, full of curiosity and respect. The elders whispered among themselves. They had never seen anything like this. Never had a human survived the lair of a Vrythax dragon, much less form a bond with one. They had expected weakness, but this child showed something entirely new: human strength of mind and heart. Kieran took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Humans are not weak," he said clearly, his small voice carrying across the rocky cliffs. "We are not just prey. We are strong in ways you do not see. We can survive, think, and even turn the impossible into an ally." Thrinix rumbled behind him as if agreeing. Its massive wings spread slightly and the sound shook the ground. The other dragons in the distance watched quietly, sensing the unusual bond. Kieran turned to face them. He raised his hand, not as a weapon but in a gesture of calm. "We are not enemies," he said. "We do not want to fight. But we will survive. And those who underestimate us will be surprised." The elders stared, unsure how to respond. They had ruled this planet for centuries, feared by all, and now a human child had stood before them, unarmed and small, and yet more commanding than many of their own warriors. Kieran felt a surge of confidence. He had faced the impossible and lived. He had not only survived, he had changed the rules of the game. Suddenly, Thrinix lifted its massive wings. Sparks flew from its scales, reflecting in the alien elder's wide eyes. The dragon let out a roar so powerful that it shook the cliffs. Most creatures would have run in fear, but Kieran stood firm. He did not flinch. Instead, he stepped closer to the dragon, showing unity rather than submission. The other dragons in the distance began to stir, their curiosity aroused. They had seen Thrinix behave strangely, following a human, listening to a human, and now returning to the cliffs with a human beside it. The other dragons tilted their heads, unsure what to do. Even in their vast experience, they had never encountered a human capable of this. Kieran whispered to Thrinix, "We can do this. Together." The dragon rumbled low, a sound that felt almost like agreement. Then, with a swift, graceful movement, Thrinix leapt into the air, carrying Kieran on its back. The humans watching from afar gasped, their fear giving way to awe. The dragon soared across the sky, the small human riding atop it like a commander of legends. The elders were left speechless. They had fed humans to dragons for centuries, believing them weak and powerless. And now, one child had not only survived but commanded respect from the deadliest creature on their world. The lesson was clear: never underestimate humans. Kieran looked down at the glowing rivers, the jagged rocks, and the cliffs below. He realized that strength was not just in muscles or fire. Strength was in the mind, and courage in the ability to remain calm when all around you feared and panicked. Humans could survive where others failed, not because they were the strongest but because they thought, adapted, and dared to challenge the impossible. Thrynix swooped low over the alien elders. The dragon's golden eyes burned, but it did not attack. Instead, it lowered its head slightly, almost like a salute to Kieran's bravery. The humans and dragons watching from a distance began to cheer softly, unsure if the elders would allow it. Kieran felt a thrill of victory. He had done something no human had ever done before. The elders, after a long moment of silence, finally spoke. Their voices were quiet, almost shaken. "This human has proven something we never believed." One of them stepped forward, trembling slightly. "Perhaps humans are not weak. Perhaps they deserve respect." Kieran smiled faintly. He knew this was only the beginning. Humans would continue to be underestimated across the galaxy, but each time they would prove their worth, their courage, and their intelligence. One small child had changed the perception of an entire species. That was human power. Thrynix landed beside Kieran, its massive claws pressing into the ground. Kieran looked up at the dragon's enormous head and said softly, "Thank you, friend." The dragon rumbled, nudging him gently. Together they turned toward the horizon. The galaxy was vast, dangerous, and unpredictable, but for the first time humans and dragons had formed a bond strong enough to face it together. And somewhere in that moment, Kieran understood something humans had always known deep down. Strength was not always about size, claws, or fire. True strength was in courage, in heart, and in the ability to face the impossible, and to make allies out of what others saw as threats. The sun of Zytherian was setting, painting the sky red and gold. Kieran stood tall on Thrynix's back, small but unafraid, and for the first time the galaxy had truly seen what a human could do.